I am not an alarmist, but Canadians, it is time that we start organizing. What we are seeing right now is the systematic dismantling of democracy in Canada. The Liberal Party has introduced Bill C-9, the so-called Combating Hate Act, and it now removes any need for approval from the Attorney General in order to prosecute hate crimes, which has always been guaranteed. Section 33 in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Liberal Party is attempting to dismantle that barrier on prosecuting so-called hate crimes, which in reality is just speech that the Liberal government hates, and they are trying to remove dissidents, remove Canadian dissidents. They are flooding the country with immigrants who over 80% of the time vote Liberal against the will of the Canadian people. Over 75% of Canadians say we have too much immigration, yet they continue to allow people to flood in the country because it's their voting base. They now are recognizing the state of Palestine due to the fact that there are 2 million Muslims in the country, and it is a massive voting bloc for them. This is not a conspiracy theory. Canadians are being replaced, and they are passing laws now that say that if you criticize the government, you are going to be prosecuted for hate crimes. This is an SOS. This is an immediate attack on our Canadian democracy. Bill C-9, the so-called Stop Hate Act, makes it so much easier for the Canadian government to go after dissidents. They are going to be shutting down alternative media, whether it be on YouTube, on TikTok. This bill, if passed, which was just introduced on Friday, and they're going to try and rush it through the House of Commons as quickly as possible, would allow the Canadian government to remove any channels, any independent media news channels, which already are incredibly lacking in Canada, for criticizing them on immigration, for criticizing them on policing, for criticizing them on allowing hundreds of thousands of people into the country from various dangerous areas of the world, resulting in what we're seeing in an explosion of crime in this country. Any criticism of the Liberal policies will be called racist, xenophobic, and hate crimes. Wake up, Canada. The definition of hate is being expanded to include so-called fomentation of detestation and vilification. My God, if you're a Canadian and you have walked our street over the past 2 years, the amount of hate that you have seen with the red carpet rolled out by our police force has been shocking. Foreign flags on our streets every single day, signed off on by the Liberal government because they align ideologically. And what are they doing now after these 2.5 years? They're saying, we are going after you if you are a dissident of this country. Don't let them fool you and say, oh no, we're just going after hate speech. No, what they're going after is speech that they hate. This is what communists always do. They make it illegal to criticize their government. If Bill C-9 is allowed to pass the House of Commons, if Bill C-9 gets signed into law, it is more extreme than the so-called Online Harms Act that Trudeau tried to pass before he prorogued government, Bill C-63. They are trying to pass a more extreme version. This is a 5-fire alarm in Canada. This is worse than the Online Safety Act that was signed in the UK, where they are now arresting 30 British people a day. You see crazy stories every day in the UK of police showing up at people's houses for them liking a social media post. You are going to see that on steroids in Canada. Bill C-9 has passed. Sean Fraser, the same man who absolutely destroyed Canada's immigration program, is now in charge of the law in this country. He's the chief. You only can fail upwards like this in the Liberal Party of Canada, in the Communist Liberal Party of Canada. Bill C-9, this must be shared far and wide. This criminalizes speech in Canada. This is the downfall of free speech in Canada. This is the downfall of the pillars of Western civilization. We've already seen Canada fall like you wouldn't believe in the past decade, since Justin Trudeau got his claws into Canada and has absolutely destroyed our housing market, destroyed our healthcare, destroyed our standard of living. GDP per capita has fallen 6 quarters in a row in Canada, which is unbelievably malevolent. You cannot do that without malevolence in a country with the incredible natural resources that we have in Canada. But this bill, Bill C-9, the so-called Stop Hate Act is the most extremist attack on our right as Canadians to criticize our government that we have seen. And that's saying something after the past decade of this disastrous Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney is here to finish the job and to shut dissidents up permanently and for good. I am going to be organizing. We need to make as much noise as possible. Write your MPs, write on social media, make as much noise as possible. Bill C-9 cannot be allowed to pass. We already have one of the most propagandistic medias in the world. If you watch CBC, CTV, they receive $1.5 billion a year from our government. They are government cronies, government lapdogs. You don't see any criticism ever on these so-called news channels. What they are is propaganda channels. And if Bill C-9 passes, the few of us out there that are dissidents, that are critics of this government, are going to be locked up and shut up. This cannot be allowed to pass. Spread far and wide. Like I said, write your MPs. Please like, share, join, become a member. Help this move from the ground up. I'm going to be organizing moving forward because this is the one. Bill C-9 cannot be allowed to pass. This is what communists, this is what Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot always try and do. They always try and silence dissidents. Canada, now is the time to stand up and say no. If you are a patriotic Canadian, if you have ancestors who fought and died, Vimy Ridge, World War II, for this country, our ancestors did not die so that this creepy crook, Mark Carney, who works for the WF Davos and Brookfield Asset Management, can tear down freedom of speech in this government. Scream it from the rooftop, say hell no to Bill C-9. This attack on our fundamental freedoms as Canadians will not be allowed.